You're listening to the Womanpreneur Podcast. Empowerment in business and life.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Womanpreneur Podcast. My name is Melissa Moats. I am here with my awesome friend, Amanda McEwen, and we are both so excited today to have a very special guest with us, our dear friend and also fellow womanpreneur, Kirissa Shipp, who is the president of TV and Radio Voices.com, and they specialize in e-learning voiceover. Right?
Was that
official enough?
More than, yeah.
Did I do okay?
You did great.
All right. And she's also our dear friend and my very favorite walk-in buddy. So I just wanted to throw that in there too.
That's important.
It is.
That's where we have a lot of great ideas.
It's where a lot of our great ideas are born. And we're really grateful that you're one of our fans and that you like to listen to us.
Of course.
Thank you for
I
that.
love it.
Thank you for that.
And so for the first time, normally you're in my earbuds and I'm talking to you guys. You don't know it, but I am and interjecting. So today I will just interject from much
real.
Closer.
For real, you're going to interject.
And now the question, though, will you listen to this episode?
I don't know.
You'll see how you feel at the end.
Right.
Sometimes we have guests who want to be guests but are a little unsure what it's going to be like. So we're going to try to make this easy on Kirissa.
Yeah, we just want it to be super fun. But we were brainstorming together, the three of us, and kind of trying to figure out what would be a great topic.
I was not part of this brainstorm.
Well,
it's nice that you tried to include me. But
you said,
yeah.
Hey, what are we going to talk about with Carissa?
That
Let
was
me
my
know.
involvement.
So you were involved. I mean,
perfect. Then yes, I get some of the credit.
Yeah. So we were brainstorming on, gosh, what could we talk about? What could we talk about? And where we landed was big takeaways from being a business owner. And we were like, should we talk about from the last 5 years or the last 2 years? I don't even know that the time frame is as important as just what are some big takeaways from owning your own business, running your own business. And that's what we're going to dig into today. So
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. And I don't know, I don't know which one you want to talk about first, but I know you had communication on your list, which is a big one.
Yeah, that's very important. That kind of plays into, so the people that I manage, or as I manage my business, everybody's a freelancer. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge to stay on top of things. Mm-hmm. And it's also, when you're not in the same space, in the same room, you don't know what people are doing. You don't know why it's going to take 7 hours to get back half a page of audio. Mm-hmm. Communication's key for me because I can't see anybody that I'm working with. And I need to know what they're doing. Did you get the request for this job? When are you going to do it? Maybe. Is it, are you going to be around later if we need some fixes? Mm-hmm. It's just, sometimes I wonder if people think, oh, I don't really want to bother her. She probably gets a million emails. I don't care. Bother away because
you want to know what's going on.
I want to know. And then when that relieves the anxiety and the fear, because if somebody gets a job, if I send a job out and they don't reply for a long time, it just eats at me.
Yeah.
It's like nagging you at the back of your head.
It's so simple.
Did you get it? Are you working on this? Am I going to have it soon? Or I understand that one a lot because sometimes even though you want fewer emails, just a quick thanks or a got it or I received this and I'll get it back to you by X time is what I would prefer because I like details. But but just the sometimes I'll get that with the freelancers that I hire, and I'm waiting for this piece of animation to come back, and animation takes a lot of time to create sometimes. But there are times I'm like, well, are you even working on this? And then I'll get a finished piece back, and that's great. But it's like, where were you the last several hours? You couldn't have just sent a text like ETA is 5 o'clock or something to let me know, because I also don't want to be that nag that's sitting there like, did you get it? Did you get it? But there's that balance sometimes of just communicate back with me, and then I don't have to bug you.
Yeah, because you're not in an office setting. You can't walk around to somebody's cubicle and just say, how's your project going? Or
where you at
so
with this?
it emails what you got.
Yeah.
I think
Or text.
in past episodes, we've touched on this quite a few times, but just simple acknowledgement, keeping it super brief, along with an ETA, that's always the best if you can do that. But even just an acknowledgement is huge. And, there's so many freelancers out there, and it's so awesome because, here you are, you've got so many projects. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you guys do too, so that some of the things we talk about today, our listeners, our viewers, they can kind of put it into better context. So you cast voices in a lot of different languages for different types of e-learning. So do you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, like our process maybe a little bit. And what I do, I guess.
Yeah.
I often say, I don't refer to myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't actually start the company. My husband did, but now I run it. So I often refer to myself as a project manager because that's really what I do all day long. And there are a lot of moving pieces. So that's why communication is so important, because I've got a lot of balls in the air at any given time. And the more certainty I have of what's going on with this project and this one, the more comfortable I feel. So when we receive a job, a script, I have a roster of about 50 people that the client can choose from. And we take the script, we send it out to the voice actor. And then in my particular company, the voice actors, so for those of you who are and know a little bit about the business, the majority of the time of your time is often editing, and we don't do that. So or we don't ask the voice actors to do that. So that's another layer of what goes on in my day, is doing all the editing or having it sent out to people that help me. And then we do a quality check. So that's a whole second listen. And then we provide the client audio. It's usually, e-learning is pretty quick. Everything in the VO business is usually pretty quick. So we usually in 2 or 3 days provide the audio, and we have nothing to do with video or production.
Yeah. What would be an example of like an e-learning job? So for like some of our listeners who might not know, like, we talk e-learning all the time, and there's so many different types, but like, what would be an example of like a project type? Like, what would it be?
Well, there are a couple of different kinds. There's like B2B, business to business, and that's where people are training. Companies are training their employees a lot of times. So they may be, like say it's a large international company, they may need to tell certain people that are traveling, okay, you're coming from this country and you're going to North America. What do I need to do? So they actually have recorded training for, this is how you apply for your visa. This is,
Oh, cool.
And also they sometimes include like cultural differences, like expect them to shake your hands in the United States. Maybe we don't shake hands, or whatever it is.
Or high five.
So there's business to
sorry. I had to throw it in
or
there.
air high five.
Yeah.
That's a thing now too. Or little elbow to elbow action.
Or as I learned from my friends Hoda Kotb and Jenna Hager,
A little
this
heart.
is working. Yeah.
A little heart.
Don't have
hand
to
heart.
touch.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it too.
You have so many layers of challenge in just what you described, because you're communicating with a client. You then have to communicate to the voice actor. So you have to give them an idea. I don't know how much description they give you about what they're looking for, or if it's more straightforward, just read this professionally. Then you have to get the audio back. You have to send it to an editor, communicate it with that person, say this is what needs to be done, get it back, then send it to somebody else to QC to make sure that, and they need to know specific things they're looking for, and then you're dealing with people on every time zone imaginable. Because I know when you and I first met, we were kind of going over some of your business processes, and I'm like, but when do you have Kirissa time? Like when? Because your clients start at all hours of the day, and it's like, when When do you
Yeah,
get
back
to?
when we met, I didn't have any.
You did not.
Things have changed.
I know, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, there's so much to juggle, and I have a lot of touches. And that's probably a question I had for you. Like, do you see any way I can avoid some of these touches? And over the years, I've learned things from people who are helping me. Right now, for just about a year and a half, I've had a full-time person on board
team member.
Yeah, that has been a blessing in so many ways. But so I've been able to cut down my touches a little bit, which is real helpful. But
something you had mentioned earlier was knowing that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big part of it, because a lot of times when you own your own business, and whether it's you and your husband own it together, but sometimes you want to do everything yourself because you want to make sure it's done right. And I think that's the biggest one. It's not always, well, I don't want to pay somebody else to do it. It's more, I know that if I do it, it's going to be done the right way. And so a lot of us have a hard time trusting somebody else to do it properly. Without being micromanaged. How do you deal with that?
Well, and I also want it done on my own timeline,
Right.
which you just can't control people. So that's challenging. How do I deal with? What did you say?
With just how did you finally? Well, we'll start with how did you finally come to the decision that you needed?
Oh, that I needed
a
help.
person.
Yeah,
you needed someone.
Well, just. First, what you were saying, when it's your baby, it's so hard to give up control. Certainly, I give up part of the process just naturally because other people are voicing. But when it comes to the quality control, that's where it's hard. And I guess, over the years, I've had different versions of an
help.
Assistant, of help, but it.
I wanted to say one thing because I know you really will. I think when you really realized you needed to have somebody, you really needed to find a good person to be on the team full time, was when you were just working morning, noon, and night, and even on the weekends, and you just were not able to catch a break. I mean, I remember the kind of stress, and you were just like overwhelmed, and you were like, it's just so hard to find that right person. It's just so hard to find that right person. And, which we've been talking about, but then you got really dedicated to finding that right person, and you've had to go through some of the wrong people in the process to get to that right person. And that's frustrating too. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. I can say again, when it's so personal, you end up kind of leaning in and looking for family and friends. I mean, who can you trust? I don't know how people just hire people.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult process, and there's so much trust involved. And in the end, there's trial and error too. Like you said, some people didn't work out.
Yeah.
So then you've spent your time and your brain and your resources. And so it's like, it's kind of a bummer.
It's a bummer.
But you have to just keep trying. And it's, as you know, been beyond worth it for me to actually have a life.
Yeah.
For once. I mean, it was 4 or 5 years of not being super happy, trying to be in everything
you did
I
your
could,
best.
of course. But it's having. Just shout out to Jeff Abeg. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff. Changing worlds.
He's changing my world, that's for sure. Just having somebody that you can rely on.
Yeah.
That I know him well enough to know that he's going to do a good job. He's going to do his very best. Is he going to make a mistake? Yeah, so do I. Every day, probably. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I had to let go of everything's got to be done my way. Mm-hmm. And I've learned from the people that I work with, like, oh, that's actually a better way. Yeah. I've had editors teach me something really cool that I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I've never been turned off to that. But at first I think I thought, because things only had to be done my way, I didn't make it easy on the people that were trying to help me because maybe it wasn't intuitive to them, or something else made more sense. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know.
I think
it's progress.
Well, and in terms of being a big takeaway, I think that's a huge one, is that people are going to make mistakes, ourselves included. So it's really about how you handle that mistake. How do you correct it? Because sometimes the mistake might be a minor one that nobody actually knows about. And sometimes it might be a huge one that affects your client, and then you have to do something about it. But nobody, I mean, except for me, of course, but I mean, no, everybody makes mistakes, and that you can't expect somebody not to at some point.
Right.
But then the communication comes back in, and it's, okay, this is how we're going to handle this, and let's just make sure that doesn't happen. And I think for most people, you only make a mistake once, or that specific mistake, you only make it once, because then forever, every time you do that thing again.
Yeah.
But the thing is, too, in the hiring thing, not everybody is a perfectionist. And I think you should strive for it, but I don't think you have to be it. No, I mean, none of us are perfect. But that puts a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
So I've learned though, to just like, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Weird email goes out, nobody died. I mean, we say that in our house all the time.
Yep.
Nobody died.
Nobody died.
And that's freed me up too.
That's a very freeing statement.
And I think it's finding that person too that's going to care about your business the same way. Because I don't know Jeff. I deal with him a lot via email, but it's that, like, there seems to be a level of care involved that, like, he wants you to succeed, and I'm sure it helps him too. Like, because if you're working for somebody else, even whether it's a full-time thing or a part-time or on a contractor basis, like, you want to believe in what your client is. It's like, that's how it is for me and both of you. It's, I want you all to do well. I mean, it helps me because you keep me on board. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you're good people. I want your business to succeed. And so it's celebrating those successes with you, and not just, I'm in it for the paycheck, I don't really care. Right. Well, and it's hard to find those people, because a lot of times people
it's hard to find Amanda McEwen's, let me tell you. There's not a whole lot of them out there.
I just wanted to say, you guys both mentioned, that sometimes you have to go through a lot of wrong people, but I'm still with both of you, so.
And
thankfully.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just
never gonna let you go. Gonna hold you. I don't want to get like super creepy, but like
I'll just lean over in my chair a little bit. I'm like, which song?
Everything in my life is an 80s jam. Yeah. No, but one of the things I sing always, as you know. I mean, I even just sing when we're like hanging out or on a walk. But
sometimes.
However I feel, I bust into song. But one thing we've talked about a whole bunch of times on walks and just in day-to-day life of both running businesses, and Amanda knows too, is it's just like, there are a lot of freelancers that we work with and we engage with and stuff that either they're not great communicators, or they don't have attention to detail, or they don't seem like they care. And maybe they do, but they're just not really showing us. Like, if you had some boxes you could check or whatever, or advice to give to other freelancers out there to, like, do a really great job or to shine, like, what would be some super skills or some things that would really make somebody stand out for you, aside from just communicating. I think timeliness is important. If you can treat a project with some level of urgency, I think that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah. What do you want to say about that?
I think it's so many people don't know what I do. The people that I work with don't really know what my days look like.
Right.
And that's probably normal anywhere. Yeah.
So,
because my inclination is to say, put yourselves in my shoes, because we always do better if we can do that. And then you know how to, I mean, sometimes I'll make a request, and my specs are very clear and clean, and everybody has them. And it blows my mind that people don't follow directions. That's probably hard. And I know you teach this all the time. If an agent sends you a job or an audition or whatever, follow it to the letter. There's no other way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that does blow my mind a bit. And again, we're working with creatives, but creatives are smart too.
Yes, they are. But they should just take the time to pay attention to those details, because the details matter, and the spec sheet's there for a reason, So for sure.
And I think again, if you could see what I do, and it's to one person something, they might think, how can that be that important? Really, it just is, because I'm not only dealing with you today. I've got 14 other people.
That's great.
You are an orchestra.
Yeah.
Conductor, right?
Basically, yeah.
True. No, you're the orchestra. There are so many things that, you have your hands in, and that you are really bringing to life and crafting and listening to and delivering and communicating. And I mean, there's just a lot of hats you wear, girl.
Yeah.
And that's a really great point, though, about for anybody, on whether you're on the client side or the vendor side, it's you don't know what the other person's day is. Mm-hmm. So for you being the client, if you're sending out a job to somebody, and when she's talking about a spec sheet, she might say, okay, we'll send this back. I know like with sometimes it's like a script needs to be formatted in a certain way, certain font size, certain spacing, because it's how you determine how long it's going to be. And then if somebody sends one back and it's completely off, it's like, no, like the instructions were right there.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, but people just are like, I'm just going to send it. Like it probably doesn't matter, but it's not for you to decide what matters to somebody else.
Right.
I always say, don't give me a job. I've got one, enough of one.
Yes.
So don't give, here's just one example. Don't give 4 takes if I haven't asked for 4 takes, because then my editors are spending extra time. Which take do I use? If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I feel like sometimes people give me a job.
Yeah. When the people you hire create extra work for you. And we've talked about that some too, is of people being resourceful on their own and maybe finding some answers to things on their own, instead of saying, oh, hey, how much, like for Melissa, sometimes we'll get an email and be like, well, what should I charge for this? And they've already taken a class where they've gotten a sheet that says exactly how that they should charge for it. And Melissa will flat out say, well, did you look over your notes? What did you come up with? And then like, if you still need help, because a lot of times there's something that wasn't covered or something else, then we always want to help. But she's like, do the work first.
Don't give us a homework assignment.
Yeah. Yes.
It's one of those things. Actually, last night I was teaching the telephony class, like message on hold, voiceover, and we were going over the rates and how to quote for that kind of work or whatever. And I said, I'm happy to help somebody figure out what to quote on a project if they have put the effort into coming up with a quote that they believe is the correct quote, and then bouncing it off of us. Like, you or me or both of us, because we co-teach a rates quoting and billing workshop. But I think it's terrible when people are just kind of like, hey, I've got this job opportunity. Like, what should I charge? Like, what should I do? And it's just like, hey, you, I got my own stuff. I got my own stuff I'm quoting today, invoicing and doing and whatever. So no, it's just like you said, you don't need an extra job.
You want to make life easier for the person who's paying you, so they keep paying you.
Yeah. Exactly. And when I've taught e-learning here, I've been asked a similar question, and what kind of people do you look for to be on your roster? People that'll work. It's pretty simple. People who will follow directions. It's really, and I work with fantastic people. I don't want this to sound like a complaining session.
No,
I'm just trying to shed some light.
But there have been times though in the past that you've had some people on the roster that haven't worked out, and it's not easy for you to have to cut people loose if they're not following directions or they're not available or all those things. And it was funny, we were just this morning having a conversation we did our morning walk and had our morning little coffee date. It was so special, and this word kept coming up. I said, you should, I was telling her about a talent that I thought maybe she might want to consider. And I was just trying to, see if I could put a little bug in her ear about somebody that I think is a real nice up and coming talent. And I said, this person's very hungry. I said, they're hungry. They're a hard worker. They're very much they have a go get 'em, spirit. And Kirissa, you remember what you said about that this morning?
Yes, I do. I said everybody's hungry when they're looking for a job.
Yeah. And then when they get one,
not so much sometimes.
Yeah, they get a little full. And then they need a siesta.
Yeah, because I've encountered that so many times. And not even, you're doing it as talking about someone else when somebody comes to you and asks to be on the roster or maybe to edit, do some part of the business. It's super, they're excited, they want to help, they want to be a part of things, but until they don't, and they'll say anything. And it's not, these are nice people, good people. Yeah. It's just, it's a strange thing. And that's, if you want to ask something I've learned about business, that's been a very surprising thing, because I don't tend to have that in my life. Like, I don't have flaky friends. I don't, but it's been interesting. Yeah. Work ethic is huge. And
there are a lot of different degrees of work ethic out there. Yeah. But I mean, some people, like we said, they are very hungry. They are very driven. Then you give them an opportunity and they absolutely do not follow through, and it fizzles. But then there are the people that you can bring on, and then they just absolutely wow you, and they're amazing to work with, and they're great communicators, and they have all those skills that we're talking about. But how do you like to be approached? So let's just say someone wants to reach out to you for any kind of position within your company. It could be as an editor, it could be as, a talent, it could be any member of your team, to do book work or whatever. I mean, I know you have a super stellar person on your team. I'm not even, but what I'm saying. Like, what is advice you could give to someone who wants to approach a company and that's a freelancer looking into work? What would you suggest to them?
I think I would suggest that they have something to offer and they know what it is they have to offer. And so I almost don't want to use my company as an example, just because I'm not looking for talent.
No.
This is not an open call.
Yeah.
What if I want to be on your roster?
Well, of course.
Make her audition.
Yeah. Please. Well, seriously, if you want to be on anybody's roster, or you're looking for an agent, when we're talking, again, this industry is what I know best. Look at the people on their roster. Do you fulfill a spot that's not already there? Because, again, the most important thing to me is how people will work. So I get lots of requests to be on the roster. And honestly, I try to have a nice range of different voices to offer my clients. But I don't care if you're the best VO ever if you don't respond and you don't do the work in a timely manner. So, and that's hard to know from a stranger over email. So somebody just sends me an email, like maybe through the website about being on the roster, for example. So I don't know. The more personal, like you were doing this morning, the more personal, at least reference you have. I think I've made that mistake
for somebody.
Yeah, like of not having anybody.
Right. It's nice when, for me, in my opinion, it seems like I always really like the opportunity to have like a warm lead, meaning someone who knows someone who can introduce me and say, I know this person. I've known them a long time. They have a really good track record. They're easy to work with. It's nice when it's a personal reference. It's a different thing than just taking a chance on someone. When sometimes you do take a chance on someone, and
sometimes it pays off.
It's great, yeah. But Trust in your gut.
It's like 100% of my business is referral based. Like, so I never would have met Kirissa probably and gotten the opportunity to work for her company if it weren't for you. But you talked to her and said, "Oh, you should talk to Amanda." And that's how I've gotten most of my work is from that. And luckily, she kept me, which is always a good thing.
Oh, you're awesome.
But and it's also doing research, like you said. They come to you and they're already offering you something you don't have, because we'll get that. I'll get it through my own personal website. Sometimes we get it through the podcast. We'll get emails of somebody offering us production services. And it's like, have you paid attention to our podcast at all? Because sometimes it's like, you can tell it's a generic pitch. It's not at all customized towards us. Sometimes the information is completely not accurate. And it's, because I always respond because I think it's rude not to respond, and it's a problem that I have. But I always just say, like we already have a great team, but thank you for reaching out. But I see that in some of the podcast groups too. Like, people are constantly being pitched to be on an episode of a show that they've never listened to.
Yeah.
And I'll get it sometimes. People are looking for production work and they want to be part of my team. And it's like, my website is pretty clear that I'm a single person. And I do all these different things, but there's no team per se. Okay. But sometimes the way it's worded, they think that they're reaching out to a company, and they probably, got my info from the Nevada Film Directory or something, but just didn't even take the step to look at the website first, or to try to find some way to personalize it. And then to me, I'm like, you're just sending the same thing out to a bunch of people. So like, I get that you need work, but it's not about you. Like, if I'm going to hire you, it needs to be about me. What are you offering me? Yep. And a lot of people approach it with, well, I need the work and I have some openings, and
I.
Yep. And that turns me off right away. It's like, no.
Rather than providing a solution or being of service or making it about the person who you are, engaging with. So I know you made me laugh too today when you were like, yeah, and then when people reach out, and then I want to respond back to everybody, but then it's like one of those things where you're like, what did you say? It leaves a pit in my stomach if I don't have a chance to get back to everybody and tell them something.
See, it's that. I
have a loose end.
Yeah, it is a loose end, and it hangs over my head.
Yeah.
And I've gotten an email from somebody before, like, say a week went by. Mm-hmm. My main goal every day is to run my business, to make sure everything's going smoothly. And some days that's all I can do. Mm-hmm. I just don't have time. I say that, you think you would have 2 or 3 minutes, but it's the headspace. And sometimes if I don't get back to them, it stays worrying me. But sometimes somebody will give a little nudge, and that's, whatever. Okay. But I want to say, hey, I haven't forgotten about your email, because it's stressing me out. Now, I, as a smart person, should just answer the email so that it doesn't stress me out for days. But that's what I just want to say. Yeah, no, I didn't forget. Believe me. Yeah. I thought about it, in fact, about 3:00 this morning when I woke up,
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but you don't know. I don't know if somebody forgot to respond to me, or if they just couldn't get to it.
Yeah. What do you think about work-life balance?
This is something we talk about a lot.
That's
so
why
you know what I think about it.
Well, could you tell
I don't know what you think.
Tell Amanda what you think about it, and our awesome listeners.
It was challenging for me, as we were saying earlier, So just briefly, my husband, Dustin Ebaugh, started TV and radio voices about 15 years ago. And when we decided to move to Las Vegas, that's when I took over. His voice career was growing in a way that him putting all his focus just on him rather than TV and radio and the roster and all the editing and all that stuff, it just worked out great. So since that time, I was in a new city and I didn't know a lot of people. So it wasn't so hard just to work all the time. But I'd say probably for 5 years that I didn't do much of anything else. And, we would travel, and as long as you have good Wi-Fi access, I could work. but sometimes it was so challenging. Like maybe the Wi-Fi access wasn't that good, or a vacation sometimes has to be a vacation. I love that I can take my laptop and go anywhere and I don't have to miss things anymore because I can work in the hotel room or whatever it is. But it comes with certain challenges, and that even after a while I was like, I don't really want to go anywhere anymore. This is not fun for me because I'm stressed out. So again, over time we'd hired a few some more help for me, and so it got to the point that it was very obvious that I needed a full-time person on my team. And so that's really, prior to that, I did a really lousy job of work-life balance. It just was all consuming. Try to have fun. Of course, we've been walking for over 6 years, I think. We try to go every morning. We don't make every morning, but we try.
You and I have walked some miles together, girlfriend. Yeah. We have walked some miles.
I had that in my life, and I really, my husband, he's awesome. And there's a lot of laughing and goofing off and going out to eat, whatever. I mean, I just don't want for a minute for anybody to think that I was like at home alone with a hoodie and my computer or whatever.
Like me? Is that what you're trying to say? That's fine.
I've never liked Amanda.
You don't have a cat, so you're fine.
No, I don't have a cat. It's a saving grace.
Cat's name is Grace.
No,
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Her name is actually Grace.
No, so it's been like the last year and a half since Jeff came on board, really, that because not only with the two of us working all day, then the nights and the weekends are far fewer.
Yeah.
Instead of me working a 16-hour day or a 14-hour day. So that's allowed me, and being here in Las Vegas, meeting you and all the people that the voice actors studio was brought into our lives. We actually have friends, and we're trying to honor that by doing more stuff.
Yeah, seeing our friends more and socializing. And I just want to say one of my things that I am so proud of you about in the last year or so. Well, I don't know how many months it's been now, but we got you going to Pilates. And you're going to Pilates more than I'm going to Pilates. And I'm like, I have Pilates envy because I've been trying to get there as often as I can. It's just been insane and hard to get there. But I've been making it a couple times a week. But it really just this like whole last year you've so transformed your your schedule, and I know you've had a lot more time for yourself and for your health and wellness and all that stuff.
Yeah. So. I mean, 2 years ago I couldn't go to Pilates at noon.
No, when I first met you, I remember I came over to the house and we were going over stuff, and you were telling me like all of the hours that you were working. And I was like, yeah, but when do you take time for yourself? And you're like, well, no, I can't. Because if I go out to dinner even, then I have to check my email the whole time because I'm waiting for this. And then at night, I can't watch this show because it's now this time zone in this other country and they're starting. And I'm like, but you have to turn it off at some point. And you're like, I can't. But I do remember, and it still stuck with me. I think like a week after that, you sent me an email. You're like, I went to see a movie in the middle of the day today. And I was so proud. It was like one small step.
Like, yeah.
I was like, yes.
Well, I don't want to be in my own way, right? Yeah. Back then, especially like if I was gone for 3 hours, what would happen? Yeah. But now if I'm gone for 3 hours, somebody else can take care of it.
Yeah. And you have someone you can trust. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
No, you've come really far in all of that.
And our work-life balance, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you are the happiest and the most relaxed ever. Like, I would say, I mean, you are just like my super jovial, there's a little like pep in your step when we walk now. She like trots a little when we walk. I'm like, wow, Kirissa. So I just, again, thanks, Jeff.
I have a question.
What's that?
So now you're here and you're doing this, like, to somebody who might be in your position right now, what would you say to them is like a good indicator of when you said, I need to get somebody and I really need to do this? Like, speak to those people that might be in a similar position that you were in 2-3 years ago.
I mean, if you're overwhelmed, you need help. Yeah. And so it took me a long time to figure that out. But you really need help, and people, you can trust people. I wasn't very good at figuring out how not to be stressed out on my own. So to me, the whole solution was getting help. I don't know. People know their breaking points. I wish you wouldn't get to your breaking point. Right. But don't be afraid. We talk about this a lot. Like, don't be afraid to pay people to do things that don't require you. You know, if you're a voice actor, we often say get somebody else to edit, or trying to think of a real world example.
Delegate.
It's delegating. And trust that it's going to be okay.
That's the one that we use a lot, not just because I do it, but because most people hate doing it. It's like bookkeeping. And in every business, that's something that most people don't want to do. It's a good idea to know how to do it, know how to read your reports, and know how much money your business is making and all of that. But sometimes it's that, okay, you know how to do it, you know how to look at what you need, but you don't need to manage the day-to-day. Right. Or like, you know, for if it's payroll for the week, or it's some different aspect of your business that it's just information that you do have to trust somebody else to do it, but it's like you're not going to enjoy doing it. So let somebody else handle it.
And we're making that sound kind of easy, but to really answer Brent's question, because you're like, just pay somebody. Well, that's not always easy thing to do. Yeah. But when I decided I could afford it when I could no longer afford to live the way I was living.
Couldn't afford not to.
Yeah. That's the perfect way to word that.
I guess you comes to a mushroom cloud.
I couldn't say that any better, more clear than that. Yeah. But yeah, it's sometimes because I don't think any of us know how to be aware that we're in that situation until we're out of it. And it's the shameful part of it, because like when I was at my old job, I didn't know I was stressed until I got away from it. And then it was like, oh, that's what that was. Like, I didn't know. And then it's like, you want to tell your friends and family, like, why didn't you tell me? Right. Didn't you know? Because people just assume that we understand. But sometimes when you're in it, you're not thinking about the bigger impact. You're just like, I just have to get this done. I have to get it done.
And you're in the day, and you're in the grind, and you're like, you're taking everything as it comes, and you're just working through it. And but yeah, I think that's really good advice, what you just said.
And sometimes you're so in it, you're like, I don't even have time to go find somebody to help me.
Oh yeah.
And then I have to train that. Like so you kind of have to try to, I don't know, find the warning signs earlier, but I don't know how to advise to do that.
I don't either.
I don't think it's human sometimes we don't know until it's dire, and we just like, okay, we've got to do this now.
Yeah, one of the ways I knew I needed more help was that I love to listen to like personal development stuff and like personal growth stuff, and I love like Rachel Hollis, and you guys all know I love me some Jen Sincero.
You've never mentioned her on the show at all, ever.
I haven't?
No.
Yeah, whatever. Sarcasm. Hashtag sarcasm. But what I was going to say was one of my signs that I was like really, really super overwhelmed, and I was like, oh my gosh, was when I was getting mad at listening to Rachel Hollis, and she's like, yeah, all you need to do is just get up like an hour earlier. I'm like, I already never sleep. Like, I was like, and then like, they were giving all this like awesome advice. And it is all really good advice for people who, maybe are starting. But I was like, and then like all these productivity, life hacks and productivity hacks. I was like, I do them all. I do every productivity hack. I am super hyper focused. I shut off all my electricals, all my notifications. I get up at 5. I walk. I work. I'm like, I just want to take a shower and have a sandwich. I was like, and then I was like, I should be able to fit a shower in every day. This is ridiculous. Yeah. So then I was like, yeah, I need help. I need some help. So that was my point.
That we're definitely going to share on social media with that little meltdown.
When you... That's when you know you need help.
For me, it's when I'm dreaming about my work.
Yeah.
Like, cause I have very active subconscious, but when like the most mundane work tasks are seeping into my dreams, and sometimes I will do an entire job in my dream and then I wake up and I have to do it again.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's awful. I mean, and I do remember some of the stuff from my dreams and it makes it more efficient, which is crazy, but I
know you've actually told me that you've solved
I've dreamt
problems.
Solutions before. Like
you solve problems in your dreams all the time.
It's busy in there. It's real busy in there, but usually that's kind of a wake up call. It's like, okay, I don't need to be dreaming about this too. Like and what is that? Because I don't really have a team for myself. I do still do pretty much everything myself, but I tend to find ways in my personal life to ease up time. Yeah, and I find it fairly easily, but it's I don't know.
You are the team. You are a team.
I want a team.
Yeah.
It's just so much of what I do. It's me. It's kind of like you with your voiceover. Like there are things that I could give to somebody else, but
I know.
I have the trust issues too. Yeah. It's very difficult for me.
It's hard. It's hard because it's hard if you don't trust someone or if they drop the ball, then you end up having to do it anyway. So it's like you delegated, somebody else kind of half-ass did it, and then you have to go back and redo it, and it's just frustrating.
At the end of the day, it's all on me. You know.
Yep. We all
just how it is. Have to have big shoulders.
No, and it's a lot every day. It's a lot, and I think what makes you successful and what makes your business successful is your follow through and your attention to details and your ability to orchestrate and bring all of these things together seamlessly, and you do that every day. So I just want to acknowledge your awesomeness.
Very nice.
Isn't it nice to have a Melissa Moats in your life?
Oh gosh,
she's the best.
It's good to have a cheerleader.
Hey man, we all need one, but it's just one of those things where it's just important sometimes to point that out. And I think that it's good to be acknowledged, and you're awesome at what you do.
Thank you.
And
especially when you're the one running the show all the time. There is nobody to tell you you're doing a great job.
Right.
I mean, you have to tell yourself, and then you sound like me. So and then you're being like, yeah, I'm great. So
I've thought of that before. There's nobody to praise you for anything. So you really appreciate when a client sends something nice.
Yes.
It means a lot.
It does.
Like,
I know.
Sweet.
Melissa high fives herself. She's told me.
I do every once in a while high five myself, because it's just like, hey.
But sometimes you have to. I think that's a big business takeaway there, is sometimes you have to celebrate your own wins. Yeah. Because it's better, to me it always feels better when it's somebody else. Yeah. But sometimes if there is nobody else, you can do it for yourself.
For me, it's like, I took a shower today, and I had a sandwich.
Small victory.
Got my work done. No, but it's when you're a small business owner, you wear a lot of hats, and it's just one of those things that it's the days are long, and you pour your whole self into everything that you're doing.
One time, my mom, I probably have told you this, really cracked me up. I was kind of in the depths of working all the time, and she goes, "Well, being self-employed is nice because you can decide which 20 hours of the day you want to work."
Well,
like,
yeah,
good one.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But you found it now. You're not working 20 hours a day anymore.
She's only working 18. No. She's got a couple hours she can go to Pilates. No, it's one of the things that I loved that I read a long time ago from, I think it was like Tony Robbins, or one of the people that I enjoy learning from, said something about when you're a business owner, when you really know you've really made it, quote unquote, a goal would be to truly craft your day for it to be what you would want, your ultimate day. Like if you could really build your ultimate day and you can live the ultimate day that you would wish for yourself, then you know that you've really, you know, kind of mastered your business life, your personal life, you know, whatever. And I mean, we'd all love to be there. We'd all love to get there. And I think for me, it's like, that's not my everyday. My everyday doesn't exactly, you know, masterfully, you know, unfold the way that I want it to, but there are days that do. Yeah. And I'm like so proud. I'm like, oh man, like for you being able to go at noon if you wanted to a Pilates class, or if it's a beautiful day and you just decide in the afternoon to go take a walk because you can. Those are those little wins and those little freedoms of, you know, working for yourself. You want to be able to enjoy those perks of being able to say, I'm in the driver's seat, you know, and I mean, it's a nice fantasy to have,
right?
Because you are in the driver's seat,
yeah.
But you don't wanna always have to be driving all the time. You know, you want to be able to make sure that you can go. I want to enjoy some of the fruits of the fact that I have my own business and I don't have to punch a clock or all those things. But
it is in the small stuff. It is taking an hour to go to class or having lunch for 30 minutes and shutting the computer because it's the big stuff. Sorry. The big stuff is a little more difficult to come by, especially when you're relying on so many other people. Like you were saying earlier, got different time zones and other people's schedules. Sometimes I'm not expecting to do something like right away, but then they say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be out tomorrow. So that throws the whole wrench in my day. Yeah. It can. So yeah, it's the small victories, because I used to kind of beat myself up about that, thinking I'm self-employed. Why am I not having those moments like Rachel Hollis?
Yeah. Rachel Hollis, we love you.
It wasn't,
but girl,
yes, we do.
She's got a bigger team than us. I'm just saying. But when she started, she was like us, you know.
And sometimes you can leave in the afternoon and come be on a podcast now.
Right?
Yeah. This would not have happened 2 years ago.
No.
I mean, we didn't have a podcast 2 years ago, but it wouldn't have happened because you would have been concerned about missing an email.
Yeah.
And now I like that you're here.
We love that you're here.
This is like a cherry on top of everything that's happened, right?
Did you have fun being on our podcast today?
I'm a little nervous.
But you know what?
Okay.
You did so well. I mean, you had nothing to be nervous about because you are an awesome person who knows a lot of things, and you don't give yourself enough credit for the things you know and that you do. But I know that listeners are going to be inspired by a lot of the things that you shared and a lot of things that you said. And that's just something I think worth noting for people who are listening too. It's like, I think we all take what we know for granted a lot of times. And it's like, we know what we know, we do what we do. And it's just like, it's not a big deal to us. But sometimes it's just hearing somebody say something just a certain way, or sharing an experience or a point of view that can just be such a huge, impactful game changer for somebody else. So,
or even just to know I'm not the only one who feels this
that way.
Because that can happen a lot, where people, because you see everyone else and it seems like everybody else is doing everything, nobody else is stressed out, but really inside everybody's stressed out and everybody's doing what they can do. Not everybody, but a lot of times I think we keep all of that stuff and we're like, well, I'm probably the only one who feels this way, so I'm embarrassed to say that. And then you hear somebody else talk about it, and you're like, oh, wait, other business owners do the same thing
or
and they're feeling
that
the
way.
It's like, oh, yeah, we're all in this together.
No. So find your tribe. You know, it's also a really comforting thing when you can work with people and you can share wins, you can share struggles, you can find ways to be there for each other. I'm grateful for my friends and my tribe. And I got two ladies sitting on either side of me who make my life gets me a little choked up. You guys make my life better. So thank you both.
Ditto, kiddo.
Yeah. Thanks for being on here today, girl. I hope you enjoyed tuning in with Kirissa Shipp from TVandRadioVoices.com and Aardvark Girl, not Aardvark Woman, not Aardvark Lady. Aardvark Girl, Amanda McEwen.
You called me Aardvark Human earlier this week.
I tried it out.
Yeah, it worked. Just me.
But if you would like to leave a comment on a big takeaway that you'd like to share from being a business owner, we'd love to hear about it. So please drop us a line. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning into the Womanpreneur Podcast. Until next time, you've got this.